This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01 p.m. and the date is May 12, 2015. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates. The alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are Ms. Betty Hollow, Ms. Kate Housley, Ms. Joan Kranansky, Ms. Lisa Carson, and alternates are Mr. Ed Baum and Ms. Ellen Salton. I am John Golsey, the acting chair, or the chair. Also present are zoning administrator Mr. John Paskey and secretary Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded presentation on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the Board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the Board to the applicant. Thank you.
Cases on tonight's agenda. Case number 15-07V, properties at 12 and 14 West Union Street. Second case would be 15-8V, properties of at 14.5 and 16 West Union Street. And the last case would be 15-09V, the property at 10 West Union Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda, please stand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Paskey, can we stop at this point and for a briefing from you?
Yes, I'm going to get up here. What I want to do first is give you a general overview of the entire project so everybody knows exactly what's going on and where. As we know, all the cases tonight are in regards to the West Union Street fire from November 16th. We had 4 buildings, actually 5 buildings, counting the Union, that had sustained a lot of damage, but 4 of them are being converted into 3 in essence, and the 3 property owners are here tonight. And each one of them, their cases are going to be heard separately. But I want you to think about how the whole thing's going to tie together, and in your back of your mind, yay or nay, think about how this whole thing's going to work together as one. So the first case that's coming up is 12 and half of 14. So from this line here to this line here, this belongs to, or managed or operated by Gary Hunter, and it's the Cary Larch Trust Fund. So it's Oak Trust, and he will be here to talk about that briefly. That building currently had, or previously had, 12 beds before with 0 parking spaces, and now they're requesting 16 with 0 parking spaces, and where 17 are required. So that, keep in mind now, this is half of this building from here to here. The 3rd floor will be added on this, and the rest of it, the facades are being restored. The next case coming up then is actually from Guy Phillips, will be from here over to here. He has purchased 16 West Union to go along with his half of 14. So they're adding the 3rd floor on it here. Those 2 buildings combined before had 8 beds, and they're requesting 16 now. So that, like I said, is from here to here, again, saving the facades. This 3rd building then is at 10 West Union, which had the Uptown Dog in it. They're requesting 6 beds and the 2nd floor. It did not have any before, but in order to get to the other buildings to do the preservation of the facades and demo it from the rear, a good part of this building needs to come down. It's our only access to get to it, coming to be through this building to come in through the side. The alley behind it is not rear enough, and obviously if we're going to save the facades, doesn't help to go through the front. So I want you to keep this all in mind as you think about the different cases tonight, the way they tie together, and what all is involved. Secondly, I'll go back over here. The other thing I do want you to recognize, and I know we're not supposed to consider financial as a hardship, but in this situation, and I've had a lot of people ask me about it, this would not necessarily be a hardship. I think that the financial part of it needs to be heard from the representatives as an extenuating circumstance. So I'm going to let them present that to you and why. And they brought their insurance agents, etc. Because I know some of you have had questions about that, and let them explain to you why. But I think it's something that needs to be heard from their applicants. So that being said, let's have a fun evening. The first case, I guess, would be Mr. Hunter.
Any questions for Mr. Paskey before we go on? From the board, no?
Just a quick one on 12 and 14 West Union. It says that 17 parking spaces are required.
There's
you said something like
Why is 1?
There is one department and there is an efficiency unit, and our code requires an efficiency unit to have 2 parking spaces.
Right, so that's correct, that's 17.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And previously they had how many, you said?
Beds, 12, and now they're wishing to go to 16 beds.
No, they wish, okay.
Mr. Paskey, there was a couple of questions that I just want to clarify before we go on. If, let's say, case number 1, if we're going back to building just 12 bedrooms, would we be here tonight?
No, we wish, okay. Okay.
If, let's say, case number 2, if we're going back to building just 12 bedrooms, would we be here tonight?
No,
Yes, because it was damage greater than 65%.
even though it was because of fire.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go to case number 1, which is case number 15-07B. The properties are 12 and 14 West Union Street in Cary Lodge, Trust Appellant. Zone is B2D. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC construction of a commercial building with 3 5-bedroom apartments and 1 1-bedroom apartment with 0 parking spaces where 17 parking spaces are required. And since we already got the briefing from Mr. Baskey, would the appellant please come forward and introduce state your name and address for the records, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Young. My name is Gary Hunter. I'm the trustee of the Cary Large Trust, which owns the property at 12 and 14 West Union Street. My office address for the trust, which is 26 South Congress Street in Athens, Ohio. I have here tonight with me John Ballantyre, the architect for the project, Steve Pearson, the former director of code enforcement for the city of Athens, is my code expert, and Russell Norris of Matthews Insurance is my insurance agent for the Cary Large Trust. And there may be testimony from them as the case proceeds, or if the board desires it in the matter. I do have a short 5-minute presentation, video presentation, that I would like to show the board at the moment to kind of tell you where we're coming from, because this is a case that involves history in the historic district for the city of Athens, and Cary Large is a big part of the history, being a benevolent trust that exists solely for the purpose of providing assistance to people who can't afford to pay their hospital bills at Blenheim Children's Hospital in Columbus. So with that, can we cue the video? regard as the best example of Old Town Athens that currently still exists. And I believe the property owners in this area are using their best efforts to restore and enhance the look of what I refer to as Old Town Athens. The board presentations was done by the Cary Larch Trust. Just so you can see it. Here's the finished art rendition of what it will look like. The trust is a benevolent trust. It's a nonprofit trust. The trust does not normally keep significant sums of money on hand because we expend it all in maintenance of the properties and or expending monies to assist people that can't afford to pay their hospital bills at a women's hospital. The trust, though, as you saw in one of those pictures of the fire, the nighttime picture there, you could see that the exterior of 12 and 14, particularly 12, was very well maintained. So was the interior of those properties. And in fact, in an unfortunate situation of events, the way the events unfolded, the Cary Larch Trust had spent about $156,000, basically all of our reserves, in the last couple of years, completely renovating 14 West Union and doing other extensive renovations to 12. They were all completely renovated, all new wiring, new floors, new wallboard, new appliances, new kitchens, new bathroom, and a new roof installed on 14 in July of 2014. My commercial tenant, Bobcat Rental, moved into the newly renovated downstairs portion of 14 3 weeks before the fire. Obviously, and I can have my insurance agent talk to you, that kind of money that's expended by the trust is not reimbursed by the insurance. It's something that's gone, so we don't have it. So we don't have a lot of excess money to spend other than the money that comes from the insurance proceeds, and as will be testified to here by my insurance agent, the property was insured extensively. It was insured for replacement value. But bear in mind, the property was only valued at about $300,000, both buildings, by the auditor's office current valuation of the property, and the insurance is about $930,000, something like that. That's with replacement value. Because they're not replacing the new structure that's going up there. They're replacing it to what was there before. That's kind of a common misconception. It's going to cost about $2 to $2.2 million to reproduce these, which obviously dictates that the second and third floor residential areas have to be rentable. The only market for renting in the downtown area is high university students. In fact, we checked, and 100% of the downtown second and third floors are rented to high university students. High university students don't need cars. They are within half a block of walking distance to the campus. Athens promotes itself as a bicycle-friendly town. They're within walking distance of all the amenities they need. And if they need access to someplace else, we have a bus system in town. It's my position, I'll talk about it a little bit more later, that requiring on-site parking downtown is, one, not consistent with good planning practice, and two, creates many issues, safety issues, takes out parking spaces for commercial use in the downtown area, et cetera. But I'll come back to that. Let people talk about that. I want to make, John's presentation made it sound like all of the front facade. And by the way, this document was prepared by the Cary Larch Trust, John. The front facade, maybe it won't be. Yes. doesn't show up on there. The front facade of 14 will be preserved if this goes through tonight. The front facade of 12 will not be. And the reason for that is a couple-fold. The city wants the two lots combined into one, okay, which necessitates the two-storefront facade with one building behind it. Okay? What doesn't show up on the original plans, original look of the buildings, was there was 12 inches between these two buildings. That much between the two buildings. Enough actually somebody could squeeze between the two buildings. So obviously, I can't build one building behind two front facades if they're not abutting each other. The other thing is the red brick on the 12 West Union is really, really in bad shape as a result of the fire. I have some concerns about even the other ones, but every day I drive by, it looks like another portion of 12 West Union has collapsed inward. And the final thing, red brick is much more difficult, which John Valancourt can talk to match. And we're going up. What we have done, as you can see, is attempt to meet the city's desire, and my desire, quite frankly, to preserve the look and possibly enhance the look of the structures. We've kept all of the gingerbreading that's there on 12 West Union, including the porches. We've added two on 14, what I call a New Orleans kind of look, the iron railing and so forth, to give it more of a character and look consistent with the era. The original plan design that I had John do, when we thought we could get rear access, an exit from the back, had 20 bedrooms in it, which was much more financially feasible for the trust. I don't know if any of you have been back there. 12 and 14 don't have access to an alley. 12 and 14 run right up against what used to be the Varsity Theater, Chipotle's building right now. So there's no way when you do the rebuild, well, I mean, you can if I take my chances and get an easement to go across on it, but, and I assume that 16 is not going to go all the way to the alley. It doesn't currently, but it might. I don't know what the plan is for it. So I instructed John Valancourt to redesign it so that an entrance and exit is here and here on the structure. As John will explain to you, that resulted in a complete reconfiguration of the interior of it to be able to do that, and resulted in going down to the 16 bedrooms, which is kind of marginal to be able to do the project, to be honest with you. We believe, we being the Cary Large Trust, that 12 of the 12 bedroom, requirement for 12 of the bedrooms that were already there are grandfathered. I know John Paskey did not take that view, and in my written presentation, I don't, I'll incorporate it here for your, I assume you've all read it. I'm not going to try to go over all the arguments and stuff that were made in the written presentation, but the Ohio Revised Code basically says that, and it's, let me just read it, it's a bit easier. It's 713 Fit.15 Ohio Revised Code, and I'll paraphrase. It basically says that the city can put limits on when you can rebuild and grandfathering is lost only in a situation of involuntary destruction of your property. Or, I mean, excuse me, just involuntary destruction of your property. If it's involuntary destruction of your property, you can't put those restrictions on, the grandfathering continues on. And I know that Lisa Eliason, the law director, was asked to opine on this issue, and I know she didn't really opine on it but she pointed out a case to you from the Cuyahoga County Court of Appeals that would seem to say that that's wrong, that you can put restrictions on it even if it's an act of God situation. But I would point out to you that what Lisa is missing in that, referring it back to you, is a couple things. One, Cleveland is a charter city. And I don't know how many of you know the difference between a charter city and a statutory city. Okay? Athens is a statutory city. As a statutory city, we are controlled by the Ohio Revised Code. As a charter city, Cleveland is not controlled by the Ohio Revised Code and can enact their own regulations. And in fact, that case that she found for you was pertained to their specific regulations, not the Ohio Revised Code. And certainly my position as a longtime local government attorney, that you cannot deviate from the Ohio Revised Code in that sense. So that would overrule your local regulation. So in fact, the 12 spaces are grandfathered, is my position in the event. The other spaces, I do believe, are appropriate topics for either a variance or a substitution of a non-conforming use. And I'm just going to give you a brief outline. I brought Steve Pearson, who is my code expert, who probably can explain it a little bit better than I can, but I'll give you the attorney lay version, if you will, of the take on the non-conforming use argument. Parking is a use under your code. Okay? 12 and 14 West Union Street had a non-conforming use then in the fact that it didn't have parking. Okay? Then the code 23.05.02 allows the substitution of a non-conforming use, a greater non-conforming use, if the substituted use is not more objectionable. All right? So I believe you could, if you choose to go that direction, you could find this as a substitution of a non-conforming use that is not more objectionable. When you go that direction, the criteria for finding it is a lot less. Basically, you just have to find that it's not more objectionable than the use that was there before. And in support of that, I would argue that, one, it's impossible to provide on-site parking at this location. The lot is 37 feet by 13.5 feet, I believe, something like that. John, you might correct me. I think that, or this John, I don't know. It's in that neighborhood, 13.5 and 37 some feet, and 96 feet deep. And as John Ballantyre can talk to you, that's impossible to put on-site parking at that location. It's not more objectionable because it's within walking distance to activities and services that the students would need. It's already 100% rented area to Ohio University students. We checked, Ohio University's listed residency requirement in Athens campus is 29,000 students. So it's not likely that this is going to be rented to somebody else in the near future. And all of their services and activities are provided in the downtown area. In fact, it's the fact that they're there is what keeps the downtown area alive and functioning, quite frankly. I believe that should I be able to put on-site parking at the site, that would create a safety hazard. This street, West Union Street between Congress and Court Street, is not only a major artery to downtown, it is the major artery to downtown. You've got 5, as I count it, avenues and entrances coming into downtown. You've got East State Street, you have Stimson Avenue, you have Columbus Road, you have West Union Street, and you have Richland Avenue. 4 of those 5 get funneled up West Union Street. Now you might say, well, then same thing happens to Court Street. No, it doesn't. Because when you get to Court Street, you can turn left on Court Street, you can go straight, you can turn left on College Street, you can go straight, you can turn right on University Terrace. Only that walk has that significance to downtown Athens. It is your corridor. It is your opening gateway to Athens. It is what you want to be, the visual impact of Old Town Athens. We're trying to give that back to you. I think that, another reason you could find it not more objectionable is Athens promotes itself as a bicycle-friendly and has mass transportation, which we want people to use. Then there's no need for downtown parking. There is another reason, too, which is kind of financial for the city of Athens, but it also has impact on your commercial district, in that if you require on-site parking, none of the alleys in the downtown area are public alleys. They're all privately owned. And in many cases, they're not open. In fact, your city parking garage sits right on top of one of the alleys. I mean, I cut down the alley beside the theater, turn left, and come through the city building to get here, and I run right into the parking garage. That alley's, and the other half of the alley, Ohio University's built back over it. Most of the alley, in fact, I want to guarantee you, every alley is a non-public alley in downtown Athens. Half of them don't even exist as alleys anymore. So you can't put the parking on the alleys. You got to put it back on the street. Once you put it on the street, you cause a curb cut. Curb cut's going to take out a parking space. Some people may have to have two curb cuts, because it's really not very cool to have a parking garage where you enter and exit at the same location. Usually you enter one place and exit another. So you're taking out parking spaces. And we did a little bit of study at the code office, and there was like 99 owners in the downtown area and like 195 parking spaces. Theoretically, if every piece of property had one, you'd take out half your parking spaces for commercial parking. Not to mention the financial loss to the city. The auditor's office reports that you had $1.9 million of parking money in the last 5 years for downtown parking. That's exclusive of the parking garage, another $600,000. Take out half of that, you're talking about $1 million loss in income. Big for us, though, is the commercial. Do you need it? Is it going to be storage parking for, off-street parking because students are going to park on the street and leave their cars there? No. You have strict parking regulations in downtown Athens that block people from parking for more than, 2 hours? Certainly you can't park your car overnight in downtown Athens. You'll be towed. So you require the turnover to happen. So there are very good arguments against trying to find on-site parking in downtown Athens, and very few I can find that are in favor of it. And finally, if you do you can ask Paul Logue, your planner, to do a little bit of research. We did a little bit of research, and current good planning policy is really not to have downtown parking in your historic area. But for all those reasons, I think you can go the non-conforming use way. You can also go the variance way if you think that's not appropriate, and we gave you the arguments for the variance. And again, I'm not going to, they're in the written materials. I'm going to highlight them, and I'll let, if you want, Steve talk to the specific of each one, how it fits into the categories under the code. But basically, you've got, in the support of the variance, you've got the structures were built in the late 1800s and form your historic district. So I would think you would want to preserve the historic district. The lots are small and narrow, making creation of underground parking literally impossible at my site and improbable at most of the sites downtown. 100% of the downtown is student rental. The Ohio University students don't need cars. The Ohio University enrollment, as I said earlier, is 29,217 in campus. So obviously, there's a huge demand for student rental in the downtown area, where they're only half a block, in my case, from the university. Being that close in the downtown area, my properties, all of the activities and services are provided right there where they need to walk to them. The fact that there are student rentals on the second and third floor, in my opinion, is the reason you have a vibrant downtown and you have a commercial district that exists. Go to any of our surrounding communities that don't have that luxury of having their second and third floors rented, and what do you find? Downtowns that are dying. Ours exists, and exists solely because they're rented to students, and there is a market for businesses to have people that are going to use those businesses. I'm going to kind of shut up at this point. I can take any questions that you might have. Other than that, I'm going to ask John Ballantyne, maybe you want to wait until I have it, to kind of outline the proposal. The bigger view of it is that diagram over there, John, and then I'll have Steve, if you want, talk about how specifically the requirements for variance are met. It's in the materials, but he can talk about that. And I'll conclude with Russ Norris letting you fill you in on how insurance works and fits into the rebuild project where you have total devastation, which is a little bit different than partial devastation situation. So, John?
Thank you. Good evening, John Ballantyne, RVC Architects. I think you all seen me here before. And right now we're here discussing, obviously, these 1.5 buildings on Union Street. And Gary, when we started, when obviously this happened, called me and said, well, what can we do? And I think he already alluded to what possibly he thought would be a reasonable development on this site. But I think that due to circumstances, and this happens, not just here, but in various areas in Athens, we've, over the time, created situations which sometimes are safety problems. So the utmost and the most important thing that we were looking at in trying to redevelop this and to keep the historic character and nature of this block intact was how to keep it safe and what can happen to make it not only functional in terms of the use of the buildings, but also safety. And obviously they did not have proper fire separations between buildings. And they were fortunate, the whole area was fortunate that other things didn't happen because egress was also not really addressed adequately from these buildings. So when we first started looking at how to lay out, and also we're talking about 1.5 buildings here. I mean, there's not even property lines. And I mean, it was just a little bit different than normal. And what we're looking at now is taking 1.5 buildings and making it into one. Keeping it looking like 2 buildings on the outside, but in fact, the functionality of it would be as one. And the big challenge in this particular case, and I think Gary alluded to it, and I'll just mention it briefly, is there's no rear exit on this building. And depth of the building is over 100 feet. Everything that we do, if it's not based on historic renovation or preservation, which we do a lot at RVC, is dictated by code, building codes, safety issues. And there has to be 2 means of egress. You can't, a lot of times you can do certain things to a building, providing sprinklers, types of construction that are more resistant to fire, and you can get leniency in certain aspects of egress methods. In this particular case, none of that could apply. So we had to find a way to get 2 means of egress from this building. Well, the only place we can go is back onto Union Street with both of them. The current single entrance on 16 or 14 through the middle would be shared by actually 2 buildings. And then we're creating a brand new exit on 12. Now, the way we have to do this, and we had to come up with some ideas in terms of laying out the space. And what I'm just talking about is that the design of these buildings, or this building in particular, was predicated basically on code and making what can happen per code maximum in the space allowed, or the space provided. And the arrangement for these apartments is really actually going to be more like townhouses on the inside, because we can't take up 3 stories worth of stairs for public staircases inside this building and make it work, then get them both to come out to the outside. The amount of square footage that would be used for egress stairs would be way high and disproportionate to the use of the building. So essentially, there's internal townhouses within the second and third floor of this structure. And the maximum that you can do within that would be the bedrooms that are being asked for today at this meeting. Now, for a facade of the building would be, we've evaluated our engineers, and it's not savable. So there would be an additional story added, Victorian style, to that particular building. It was a 2-story building. It would become a 3-story building. The firewalls would be all shared with adjacent property owners now. Right now, there was none. There was windows opening up to that 1-foot space that Gary alluded to between buildings, which allowed the passage of fire from one to the other. We would do party walls, which would gain as much square footage as possible between each structure, and at the same time provide a fire barrier so that these kinds of things could not happen in the future, at least in this neighborhood here. Parking is obviously, because of the site and the location and the size of the building, is virtually impossible on the site. And therefore, for this particular one, the variance would be for the total number of parking spots required by the zoning code. The construction for the structures would be non-combustible, masonry bearing, steel frame, metal floor structures, concrete floors, metal studs. We'd go totally non-combustible. And I think that that also contributes to the problem in terms of making this project balance financially with the insurance adjustment or the insurance pay, what they would pay back for the loss, because none of these buildings were built of the construction methods and materials which we would propose for these structures or this structure, and which would be required by the state of Ohio based on the density and the size of these buildings. The building would be completely sprinkled, fire suppressed, which they currently are not. That's pretty much the summary of what plans are. I don't know if anybody has any other questions about the intent here.
I have a question. I'm still confused about what the egress situation was before the fire.
There was one means of egress.
Well, there were actually two.
Well, there's 2 different buildings.
There were 2 different buildings, and 12 West Union had an egress here that went up to the 2nd and 3rd floor that had 9 bedrooms. It had 4 bedrooms on the 3rd floor and whatever the difference that is, 8 bedrooms, I guess it is on the 2nd floor. This structure here, 14, and this is known as 14 and a half, is owned by Guy Phillips, was a shared building. There's an entranceway right in the, this was a business, entrance, and this was a common stairway that went upstairs. When you got upstairs, you went right into a 3-bedroom apartment that belonged to Kerry Lodge Trust. You went left to those 3 or 4-bedroom apartments that belonged to Guy Phillips. Okay? The plan right now calls for this to stay a common stairway, but when you get to the top, it's all going to be fire-rated wall between the 2 buildings. Then this becomes all one building. So you'll be able to come back down this way, or you'll be able to go through and come back down this. You'll either be able to go up and down either here or here. But there were 2 entrances before.
2 entrances, but they would not meet code to try to do that again.
Right.
Because if your travel distance exceeds 50 feet and you do not have windows that can be used out of the bedrooms as a emergency escape route, you have to have 2 means of egress. From each, you have to be able to walk out your apartment, door and go one way or the other. You can't just walk one way. And that is not the case. That was not the case in those buildings.
There was also a rear exit for 14, merely because they didn't take the building all the way back, and there was a little area back there where you could go out, and we had trouble with vagrants and stuff being back there. It was a real problem, quite frankly. But to get out to the alley, you had to cross somebody else's property, which is not a good situation, and why we're not repeating it. The other thing I want to point out here is these two buildings, as they existed, not only were they separated by 12 inches, they weren't on the same level. They were different heights of the floor. So when you preserve the two-building look in the front, you got to have the 3 stories. And actually, there were 3 stories there. It's just this roof part here had 4 bedrooms in it, the way it was configured before. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks. Is there anyone wishing to
Well,
speak?
we're not done yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I guess if you want Steve to go through our version of the findings for you? You have it
I
in
think
writing?
we have them,
You have them in
and
writing?
I
Okay,
think
then.
we've all looked at them quite carefully.
Okay, then I would ask Russ Morris to kind of
Yeah. that
let
would
you
be-
know, just so it's once and for all, it's out there, how insurance works and how it plays in.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
My name is Russ Norris. I'm with Matthews Insurance, and I'm the insurance agent for the Cary Larch Trust. And I pretty much come here tonight to answer any questions you have in regards to the insurance. We did have replacement costs on the buildings, the 2 buildings. The total of the building coverage was about $930,000 at the time of the loss. But as you see, the differences that John has laid out, we're talking pretty much apples and oranges. The idea of the insurance is to replace what you had, and that's what we would be paying out, but what they're putting back with what the city wants is one building that's going to be a large orange, not the apples that we had insured. So it's a little different. So do you have any questions based upon the insurance that the trust had?
Well, since you brought it up, when you say the replacement cost to whatever it was before, you still put a fixed amount on it, or you build
Yes.
it and whatever cost you pay for it?
Yes, so there is a limit based upon what the estimated reconstruction cost would be, and that's based upon square footage, the use of the building, the age of the building. All those are factors that would go into it. We would put a limit on it, and that would be the maximum amount that the insurance would pay out on it. So one building had approximately $405,000. I think that was 14, and then 12 had 523 or 24,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And they couldn't have purchased more insurance than that?
No, because we're only going to put back what you had. You can't purchase for something that you don't have.
Yeah, that's a great question, but, the auditor's true value of both properties was only about $300,000. We basically had it insured for 3 times that amount. For me to have it insured for what what
True
the
replacement cost.
it'd be like 8 times the value. I think if I were to try to get insurance from Russ for that amount, he'd probably accuse me of insurance fraud or something.
Well, that becomes part of the problem, because if you're trying to insure something that you don't actually have, there's a benefit for having the loss at that point. So the insurance is designed to put you back to where you were before the loss.
I can tell you that Russ and I met at least once every other year or so to
Yeah.
discuss the insurance situation with Cary Larch.
Yeah, for the last 4 or 5 years.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So was there a recoup or insurance on any of the new appliances placed in the building?
No, because those are replacing things that were already there. So electrical updates, you obviously had electrical already in the building. The new roof that was put on last year, you're replacing a roof
Well, I'm
that
not
was...
talking about that. I thought it was mentioned that there were new appliances throughout.
Yeah, it's all in that amount of money. It's capped at a maximum amount of $930,000.
Okay, so that includes goods and structure.
Correct. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, you're talking about an amount for a building, and we have an additional story on this building, so some of the expense is over
Back
and
onto the
above.
trust. That
Right,
the insurance
right.
will not pay for the additions that are going on.
Okay.
A great deal of the expense, almost twice as much. Okay, yeah, it's almost-
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Coming from a construction background, do you honestly feel you could rebuild those two buildings the way they were for $930,000?
And the one building had 3,600 square feet. The other one had 40.
In Russ's defense, Russ is not the agent that I'm dealing with. The long discussion that have been going on between I and the insurance company.
Right.
But
Short of litigation, that is the maximum out there going to.
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And we're not interested in getting in litigation.
No.
And believe me, I was in discussions for way over 2 months.
My opinion is it would not.
That was my question was, if when you say replacement cost, I was under the impression that the insurance will pay enough to be rebuilt as it was before, but that's not the case.
But
Yeah.
there are limits set up on the
Right.
policy.
Okay.
Just to make a comment on my homeowner's insurance, which gets increased every year because the value, the rebuild value of my house. And so my agents have told me over the years that that is the amount it would cost to rebuild my house. So I'm assuming that the insurance company, and then obviously it was over and above, that what the value, the rebuild value is.
It's an estimated amount that it's based upon for that, yes. So and each year you probably receive an increase in that
Oh,
limit.
exactly. So all I'm saying is that, to me, that part of the insurance would necessitate sufficient funds to rebuild
Yeah.
the same
It
structure.
doesn't work that way, and I wish it did. And from my perspective, in my opinion, if you don't have total destruction, you have a much better chance of getting the rebuild, putting it back the way it was. If you have total destruction, there is no way I can put it back the way it was. I have to put it back better, and then they don't take it better.
I guess we're all going to see our agents tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, it's nice that it's like that.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Any questions? There's none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request?
I'm Guy Phillips with PM Management and Housing Hotline, and Gary Hunter and I have been working together. It's been a wonderful experience because we have different needs, and we've worked out a deal where we can save the facade of 14, and that's really big on his part, and I greatly appreciate him doing that. I want to restore the building by the historical standards, and he's given me the ability to be able to do that. Otherwise, he, knocks down his half of the building, and I'm there with I think a 12-foot wide building, not much to do with. But I greatly appreciate him doing that, and I hope that you all see fit that you give him that opportunity, and therefore I'll be able to go on with my project, which I wouldn't be otherwise. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this variance request? Mr. Pearson?
Steve Pearson, 7520 Lee Master Road, Athens, Ohio. And I'm not necessarily speaking on behalf of Mr. Hunter and the Trust, but these are personal comments. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board. I presented over 500 cases to this board over my 14-year career with the city of Athens, so I'm kind of having a flashback here, even though the surroundings are a little different. In my current employment, I'm the Director of Code Enforcement for the City of Nelsonville, and I'm also the Assistant City Manager. I decided a couple years ago, too, with the encouragement of Mr. Baum, to run for political office, and I'm also an Athens Township trustee. When the fire occurred in Athens, the first piece of heavy-duty or ladder equipment that came to the scene to fight the fire was the Nelsonville Fire Department. Our ladder truck, as well as Harry Barber, our fire chief, he was on duty at the time, and they were actually the first responders with aerial firefighting equipment, my Nelsonville angle. As a township trustee, the second piece of apparatus that made it to the scene was the Plains Volunteer Fire Department's ladder truck. And so as I've watched the whole situation evolve, I have tried to personally keep in touch with everything, and unfortunately or fortunately, I was forced to look at it personally. Then it's almost amazing that downtown Nelsonville caught on fire recently. We had Athens show up to the scene with a ladder truck. Of course, we had our own ladder truck. The plane showed up. Logan came too. So we were able to essentially save Stewart's Opera House and the whole east side of the historic public square in Nelsonville based on the ability and immediate response of firefighters. Last night at City Council, Nelsonville City Council recognized all the firefighters and passed a resolution of thanks for all the firefighting, all the volunteers and paid employees have done in the community. So it's really amazing that there's even a little bit here, to consider putting back in place. I'm not going to go through any of the other things that Gary and I had discussed. The only other thing, though, as a former advisor to the board, there's been a lot of presentation on the historic character of the area, preservation of structures in the historic district, public transportation, a lot of issues. But I would advise the board that you're here tonight to consider a parking variance, and there are findings you have to go through. If you stray too far from those findings, you can subject yourself to other scrutiny. And so just some advice. There's only the limited criteria that you have to consider. Not should the Planning Commission be considering new parking regulations? Should the Historic Preservation Committee be considering changes to the historic district? Should there be public transportation offset corridors? You don't have to worry about that. I remember one night we talked about, there was a variance for the size of the sign at Damon's, when Damon's restaurant opened up. And I'm telling you, that night we talked about the menu, we talked about parking, we talked about the floodplain. I had to get the board back to the sign. So just that little bit of admonishment there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pearson? Last call for anyone who wants to speak in favor of the variance. We also have a couple of letters in favor of this. One is from the chair of Athens City Historic Preservation Commission. Ms. Mary Ann Reeve is supporting the variance, and another...
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Is that what she said? She said,
Flexibility or variance.
she said that the Historic Society is encouraging historic preservation and new build design that is appropriate for a historic district. And she asked us to be flexible in considering the variance. I don't
Yes.
think that
Well,
means she
flexible.
says we have to vote for it.
No.
Just to be?
Yeah, very good. And the second letter is from R.J. Somney, Athens City Planning Commission, endorsing the previous letter. So, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, is there anyone who would like to speak in general commentary? Or anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay. Any other final questions for the
Well, I will make one
tenants?
final comment.
Sure.
We all got emails from Mr. Horton.
From who?
Did you get
I
that
did
email?
not.
You
I
did
did
not. Okay. If I'm the only one who got it, we'll just ignore that.
Okay.
John, I think you need to look at the other line in the Planning Commission letter as well. Not only does it endorse the letter from the Historic Preservation, furthermore, the Commission would encourage the board to consider the variances to help aid in restoring the historic uptown area.
That's right.
So not only do they endorse the letter, they too endorse the
Right.
variance request.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any discussions?
I actually have questions for Mr. Hunter. Can we
Mr.
call
Hunter,
him
would you
back?
please come to the podium?
Are we permitted to know what the payments the large trust makes annually, and a ballpark figure for that? Or?
Well, Last year, we weren't able to make any, which was a real downer for me because I've been the trustee now for close to 30 years or so. It varies from year to year, anywhere from 10,000 on the low side to around 20,000 on the high side. It depends on the applicants that we have, the amount of money we have available. If we're, I told you we don't keep a lot of excess money because it's a nonprofit situation. So if we have a situation where we're trying to upgrade the structure to meet code or to be more livable for students or for the commercial tenants, then it may be less in a given year, but that's kind of a ballpark figure. I'd like to, after the rebuild situation, my goal is to have at least between 20 and 30,000 to distribute.
Yeah, I'd like to pose a second question. In the new construction, the apartments that would be available, I'm assuming they would be, I don't want to denigrate what was already there, but they would be more modern and have more amenities in that everything would be new and that the rents would be higher.
The rents will, yes, probably be higher. The Cary Large Trust only rented our properties in the past during the school year. We didn't rent them we didn't force students to rent them on a 12-month basis, which is kind of common practice in the downtown area. We chose not to force students to do that. We allowed them to at a reduced rent if they wanted to be. If one of 5 wanted to rent during the summer, we would do it at a half-price rent as an accommodation to. But I did not require them to do it. I probably am going to be forced to get into the 12-month situation because of the fairly large debt service that
well, but by the month is what I'm asking.
No, I don't. No, I didn't rent by the month. I rented by the semester, and it was $2,500 per person per semester, or $5,000 a year.
So, and then it'll increase in the new structure.
It will have to increase, yes, and it will obviously because they're going to be better afterwards. Yes, it will increase. But remember, I was debt free. There was no debt to the Cary Large Trust. Absolutely no debt payment. Now we're going to have a very significant debt payment. Plus the taxes are going to increase at least fivefold. At least fivefold for the property.
So the probability of higher rent, I guess you would assume that you would be renting to students with a higher cash flow than in the past. I'm just assuming that, right?
No, not necessarily. The rents that we were charging were low compared to the downtown area. I can tell you that, yes. We would have to achieve more of the market rate rent in the downtown area to meet the mortgage obligations, pay the taxes, other expenses of the trusteeship, and still have money to distribute.
Well, since it was so reasonable, what I'm trying to get at is the possibility that because the rents were reasonable and the students didn't have to shell out for the full 12 months and
right.
Can we maybe just stay focused on the discussions? This is,
yeah, I'm going to parking.
Okay.
That's where I'm going.
Let's take Mr.
So what I'm
Pierce from
thinking
that
is if you have more affluent students, you're liable to have students that are more likely to have cars, and that's where I'm going with this.
Oh, well, we've always required that students don't have cars. It's never been an issue.
No. Okay.
We've always told them there's no parking available. It's never been an issue. So I don't see that as a major.
Cars?
Pardon?
None of them.
I can't say whether they had cars or not. If they did, they paid to park them somewhere else. But we did not provide parking. No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that was obvious.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I think Lisa has a couple questions.
Yeah, I do have a couple more questions. This is about parking and cars, and we're told that no students that are resident uptown own cars. But I wouldn't mind seeing data about that because
And
I don't mean from you.
If you're attributing that to me, I didn't say that.
No.
I have no way of knowing whether students uptown have cars or not. Some may. If they do, they're probably parking them down at the fairgrounds or the university, I believe, still precludes freshmen and sophomores from having cars on
Not
campus.
sophomores, I don't.
They don't do that
No.
anymore?
Freshmen, maybe.
And you could always
Pardon?
get
It's never been
exemptions.
enforced, I don't think. Not too much.
When my son was there, it was enforced, but anyway. I don't know, Ed, you're, I don't know. I can't say whether they have cars or not. They're not, for the most part, not parking them downtown, and that's where the problem, from my perspective, comes in. They park them downtown, it just creates the congestion and safety issues.
Yes. And so would it be your position, since you're increasing, the idea is to increase the number of bedrooms without parking, is it your position that the number of beds could be increased sort of indefinitely without any impact on the parking situation? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. I kind of get the gist of what you're saying, but there are constraints. You can only go 3.5 stories. So I can't build a Bromley Hall there, or whatever it's currently called. I can't build an 11-story building there and say no parking. You're limiting. You've decided your downtown is like Washington D.C. It's going to be 3-story buildings. So it's at its maximum height. The lot constraints alone dictate how much
Right.
you
No,
can
I
get.
understand that. I'm just saying that hypothetically, if it were possible to build additional stories, for example, would you argue that those would be occupied by more and more students that don't have cars? That there would be no
I would argue
impact?
that that's not a relevant topic in downtown Athens because, one, we're trying to preserve a historic downtown Athens. Two, we've limited the size of height of buildings in downtown Athens, so you can't get to what you're talking about. And three, good planning for historic districts now, and the vitality of downtown districts would say don't require residential downtown parking.
Yeah, I hear that, but of course, we don't have any influence on what's in code, so
Yeah, you do. You actually can make recommendations to the planning commission.
I will certainly be doing that. So what about the question of, increasing the number of beds, if every building uptown adds a couple of apartments, increases beds, will there not be visiting friends who will park uptown to see their carless friends?
No, because you have parking regulations that block
No, Lisa, they'll be
anybody.
down on my
You can't
street.
park on the
They
street for
park
more
on
than
my
2
street.
hours. They can't park uptown.
No, they're parked
So
somewhere
my answer to that
else.
is no, it will not happen. And two, I don't think it's already at 100% occupancy, I believe. Every place is already. So that hypothetical is not a valid hypothetical as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And I think you need to consider that this one was a fire. You treat
There are
every case
vacancies.
differently. So if somebody comes in with an application requesting to add more beds just so they can make more money, that's a little different than
this situation.
this
yes.
situation.
One more question.
Sure, one more.
The Carrie Larch Trust, it's anticipated will be owning these buildings forever?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Believe me, I have had offers to
Yeah.
buy, and the answer is no. There are offers for partners, and the answer is no.
Thank you.
I assume that all the renters downtown, they are aware of their parking situations before they rent a place. They know that there is no parking, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They're well aware of it, so they're not requesting anything. So
We make sure that they're
Yeah.
well aware of that
Okay.
situation when they look.
And finally, I want to thank you for this nice package you put together. It was very informative. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
Well, the discussion is closed from the floor, and we will.
Is there anyone who wants to speak against it?
We talked about it. Nobody wants to-
Actually, I have one more question, and I believe it's from Mr. Paskey.
Okay.
It was stated that the city wanted the two buildings, 14 and 12, to be combined, and why is that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say the city, but John's right when he talks, and what Russ was saying. Right now, believe it or not, 14 is on, is the building legally split on parcels?
They're on two separate lots.
It's two separate parcels and through one building, so it's just easier to clean this all up. Lisa asked about the stairwell coming out of 14. That was a great question because that was a very big issue during the fire. Those kids had to go out through the roof of that building because that stairwell was engulfed in flames. This allows the building to be joined big enough that they can get two stairwells in it for safety measures and safety means of egress. It's amazing we didn't lose anyone that night. And the reason being is because they went rooftop. The ladder truck that Steve was talking about got them off of the roof. They got firefighter and police officers off the roofs of these buildings. So they exited through windows and up. That's how they got out of there, because the stairwells were engulfed in flames.
So what you're saying is a combination is to provide...
more means of egress and safety measures.
Okay.
To increase the footprint of the buildings. As Mr. Hunter said, the total width of 14 is
13 and a half feet.
so 27 feet overall, the entire building. To try to have two means of egress, the stairwells out of a 27-foot wide building it's going to eat up the entire floor space. You have nothing left. So this allows, and it's going to be the same situation for the other building too, with the other half of 14, combining it with 16, for the same principles, that we can get safety measures in place for evacuation, and fire and everything else.
I don't get why they were rentable in those circumstances.
Because they're 100 and some years old.
Because they were,
The 14 was very nice.
I mean, just mean about the safety issue.
All the
It's grandfathered. I mean, it's...
Yeah,
Safety?
grandfather.
I didn't know that you could
Safety,
grandfather
really?
unsafe, lack of egress.
There was, as I told you, there was a trapdoor exit at the back that went down to an area. There's the front exit, and then there were cupola areas, at least on my half, that allowed you to get to the roof, and we just replaced the roof. So there were 3 exits to the property. Were they the best possible? No, but there were 3 exits.
I will say it was one of the best phone calls I ever received. I received a phone call from the State Fire Marshal's office a couple weeks or months after the fire that stated it's probably because of the inspection program within the city that no one lost their lives. The alarm systems worked, the windows worked, the egress was there for what was allowed to happen with the buildings that were there, or allowed to meet the current best they could. So, I haven't shared that with a lot of people, but it's a good feeling, that all of us, and Steve included in his day, that we've done that process and it works.
Thank you.
Knock on wood.
Any discussions among the board members, and if anyone wants to entertain a motion?
I have a question. Are we going to look at just the variances?
Oh, yeah.
Of this case only, right now?
No,
What
but
about
do we
the
talk
non-
about
yeah.
the non...
The substitution.
Yeah.
Oh, the substitution, yeah. I would say just go for the variance.
I would think.
It states in the code that a non-conforming use for buildings, enlargement, substitution, etc. Substitution, when authorized by the BZA, the substitution for a non-use of another not more objectionable non-conforming use may be made. However, and then I'll skip to the B zone. However, in a B zone, no change shall be authorized to any use that is not permitted or conditionally permitted use in any B zone. So this is a permitted use within the zone, so a substitution may be an option to look at here.
I don't know why we would go that direction, but
Do you want to propose that?
Who decides?
Well, okay, can I throw this into the mix of
Sure.
conformity and nonconformity? 230504.
it's a legally non-conforming
Non-conforming.
building. It was.
Right,
legally
exactly.
non-conforming.
Right.
Sure.
But
So,
but it says,
Yeah.
did you look through this? I mean, I don't want to.
what does it
Okay.
say?
Such restoration shall not, this is under repair, replacement of
Yeah.
damaged buildings.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cause a new nonconformity, nor shall it increase the degree of nonconformance or noncompliance existing prior to such damage or destruction. That is at least as applicable.
Right, I think
Okay.
so.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay, what do we want to do?
Well, the request that's
for a
in front of
variance.
us is for a variance.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Right.
so
guess that's
Mr. Hunter has thrown out an alternative.
Yes.
But we were asked to consider a variance, so I think that's what we should consider.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Would like to make a motion?
I can do that. I move that we grant a variance to the properties at 12 and 14 West Union Street from Section ACC 231001, Table B, off-street parking, to allow construction of a commercial residential use building with 3 5-bedroom apartments and 1 one-bedroom apartment with 0 parking spaces, where 17 parking spaces are required.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the findings. By the way, we go exceptional circumstances first. Now we argue that we changed the rule a little bit. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone.
I
Would you
think we
fire
can...
would be one of the?
What?
Would the fire be a?
I think it's an exceptional circumstance to have your building burned down.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's an exceptional circumstance. And they've mentioned other things, tiny lots,
Right.
tiny buildings,
Right.
lack of egress, blah, blah, so forth. Lots of exceptional circumstances.
Any other comments? Ed? Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, the literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of the public purposes.
You're looking at someone else.
I don't see it. If the variance is for parking, I don't see that.
Well, I think that we could probably all agree that there is hardship and difficulty here. The question is whether that interferes with the purpose of the code. So you'll have to consider that. But I think there are other things farther down that I have more of an issue with.
But there's also the reality that without the variance, there is very little else that could be used with this property, and there's nothing can be done with it
Well, exactly, but,
except tear it down and put a park in.
well, I don't think that's going to
Which
happen.
we have had in the past.
Yeah, that's true
Well,
too.
Yeah.
I just want to say that in the past, we've had cases come in and that we've turned down, and they've come back and decreased their numbers and in terms of capacities. And even though everyone says it won't work, and they can indeed find a way to make it work. So just to throw that into the mix.
Yeah. Mr. Paskey, you probably weren't around at the time, but do you recall if there was any proposal for a building on that empty lot, which used to be the Belks?
Used to be what?
Belks, the store, Belk?
Okay, do we need to go there now?
Yeah, I don't know, just curious. I don't know if there was a request and they didn't get the variance.
No, I don't
Okay.
remember.
Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. I would say other properties who did not have a fire, they are still enjoying their grandfathered privileges for renting and maybe not having any parking spaces.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, I'm willing to go along with anything about the fire, but as for the parking,
right.
in general, I feel that it's an uptown situation, and the code needs to be changed instead of us constantly granting variances from the code. If there really is no need for parking attached to residences being rented uptown, then the code should be changed.
Well, that you have to go with the first statement and believe that before you say there's no need for regulation. And I'm not sure I agree with your first part of your statement, that students uptown don't have cars. But I do think that here is where I begin to balk. I think that this if you go with the variance as presented, which is what we have to do, I think that increasing the number of units in this building gives special privilege to this applicant. If they simply ask to replace what was there, I am quite willing and for it. If they say they want more than they had before, to me, that's a special privilege.
You know, we do not discuss, as Mr. Paskey said, we do not discuss consider financial hardship, but in this particular case, that 4 extra bedroom may be the difference of.
I understand that.
If it is a minimum enough, it could make a difference financially for the appellant.
I understand that. And every person who's ever come to us requesting a variance for parking downtown has had some financial incentive to do that. And sometimes we've granted it when it seemed possible, and sometimes we've denied it when it would have given them extra privileges that other people didn't have. So I'm sympathetic to that, but
I would argue that larger than it was before, it would be more a special privilege if we allowed an existing building to start adding additional beds.
It's the same thing, really.
Well, I
You
guess
decided that somebody deserves to have more when others can't or haven't been
Yes, and
allowed that
sometimes
privilege.
it's appropriate to make that determination, I think.
Okay, well, that's what we're
reason.
about. I'm
Yeah.
simply saying that I consider that a special privilege, that others are not being allowed.
Any other discussions on this? Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property.
I think, as you said, John, in this case, just 4 extra, given the extraordinary extra
Yeah.
expenses that the project requires, I consider it minimum.
Yes.
Well, I think minimum would be to replace what was there initially. That would be minimum. And additional is above minimum in that.
I think there's
We
something
cannot
that we
deal
need to
with
look beyond
financials.
all of this, because this board is, the purpose of this board is just to make possibly to look beyond that. That 4 extra bedrooms, it could, as I said, it could be a difference for the appellants for whether it's going to be a nice building or be a parking lot.
Well, you're saying that, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Well,
We don't know that for a fact. That's why I made the point earlier about people have come before the board and we've had difficulty with their projects due to size or too many variances or whatever, and they say, oh, we can't do it, we have to do this. And then they're turned down, and then they come back only with a more doable project that the board then can accept. That's
May
all
I
I'm
say,
saying.
though, you've never had one come back on a fire.
that's right.
Every single one's always been a new build from ground up.
And we've also seen the financials in terms of insurance coverage. So we have some idea of how much money they're going to be borrowing to rebuild a building.
But if you wanted to build a new building and you hadn't had a fire, you would have no insurance money and you'd have to get a bigger loan.
Well, but they did have a fire.
They did have a fire,
They
so
did
that
have a
means
fire.
they do get some insurance money, so their loan will be smaller.
And they are increasing the size of the building, so that's an additional cost even to, on top of what it would cost to just rebuild it at its original size. It's still going to be more, but
absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. There is it.
I differ. I think that this is in direct
This is going to
opposition
be-
to the code, and it will create a detriment. And if you grant this variance for the size it's asked for, and you come to the next one in a few minutes, which doubles the size, and that will be 8 additional. So
Oh,
now you're up to
yeah.
12 additional residents plus 6, and that's going to give you, 20-something new apartments downtown with no parking.
But we're discussing this particular
I understand
case.
that,
Right,
but if somebody
we know
comes
their
right
time,
after,
yeah.
are you going to deny one of these others? I don't think so.
Right.
not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intent of the said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent of a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such conditions or situations.
No. No. We don't have to do that.
Are we ready to vote? The folks in the control room, we're going to have a white shot for everyone on the board. All those in favor of the variance, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, you have the variance 3-2.
Thank you very much.
I'm surprised at that. Good luck. Thanks. Gary?
One down.
Okay, our second
May
case
we
is...
have a 4-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
4 minutes? How did he come with the 4?